Imagine it's 1965. You're about to give birth, but instead of a quiet hospital room with a bed and a doctor, you are led to a massive circular mechanical platform. You are strapped down. A technician flips a switch. Suddenly, the world begins to blur. You are spinning. Faster, faster, until the centrifugal force reaches 7 Gs. The same force felt by fighter pilots aimed at one goal, flinging your child into a net. This isn't the plot of a dystopian sci-fi movie. This is United States patent number 3216423. It is, quite possibly, the most bizarre and terrifying medical device ever legally patented. To understand why George and Charlotte Blonsky arrived at this spinning solution, you have to understand the world they lived in. It was 1965. The world wasn't just obsessed with progress, it was obsessed with motion. We were watching astronauts, like John Glenn, endure massive G-forces in centrifuges.
Colonel John H. Glenn, Jr. squeezes into his spacesuit. His smiling face belies the 10 postponements of his flight that have kept him grounded.
The general public started to believe that if a centrifuge could prepare a man for the stars, surely it could assist a woman in the delivery room. This wasn't just a machine. It was the space age applied to the maternity ward. But while NASA was using physics to escape Earth, the Blonskys wanted to use physics to escape the womb. To understand why anyone would think a baby centrifuge was a good idea, we have to look past the absurdity and into the minds of its creators, George and Charlotte Blonsky. The 1960s was an era of radical optimism. We were building rockets to the moon. We were splitting the atom. We believed that every problem, human or biological, could be solved with enough engineering. Now, George Blonsky was not a doctor, he was an engineer. And to an engineer, the human body is just a machine, governed by the laws of physics. George noticed a common problem. Some mothers struggled to provide the expulsive force necessary to deliver. To George, this wasn't a medical crisis. It was a mechanical deficit. To put 7 Gs into perspective, think about a commercial airliner taking off. That's roughly 0.5 Gs. A high-end roller coaster might hit 3 or 4. At 7 Gs, the human face begins to distort. Your skin literally pulls back against your skull. George Blonsky's calculations weren't just aggressive. They were borderline supersonic. He believed that the velocity of the spin would create a gravitational assist so powerful that it would essentially bypass the need for human effort entirely. But in the world of 1960s physics, there was a fine line between an assist and a centrifuge used to separate chemicals. To George, the mother was the centrifuge, and the baby was the element being separated. It's a chillingly cold way to look at the miracle of life. George Blonsky was a high-level engineer, and his blueprints reflect a man obsessed with precision. He looked at the process of labor and saw a power struggle. On one side, you have the mother's muscular contractions. On the other, you have the resistance of the birth canal. In George's mind, if the motor, the mother, wasn't providing enough torque, you simply needed to add an external booster. He calculated that by spinning the platform at a specific RPM, you could create a constant, reliable force that never tired. He even accounted for the arc of delivery, ensuring the table's speed would be adjustable based on the mother's weight and the estimated size of the child. It was essentially a math problem solved with steel. Let's look at the blueprints. The device consisted of a large circular table mounted on a vertical power shaft. The mother would lie on her back, her head toward the center of the circle, and her feet pointing outward. Why? Because centrifugal force moves away from the center of rotation. By spinning the mother like a record, the force would act directly on the baby, pushing it toward the birth canal. But the Blonskys weren't monsters. They designed a catcher's mitt. The patent describes a pocket-shaped reception net made of strong, elastic material. The moment the baby's weight hit the net, it would trigger a kill switch. The motor would cut out, and a set of mechanical brakes would bring the entire 500-pound spinning apparatus to a screeching halt. Now, let's talk about that reception net. George knew that flinging a newborn at high speeds was problematic. So, the patent goes into incredible detail about the catching apparatus. Imagine a heavy-duty, industrial-grade version of a circus safety net, positioned precisely at the edge of the spinning table. But here is the kicker. The net was connected to an electric bell. The idea was that the weight of the baby hitting the net would complete an electrical circuit, instantly ringing a loud bell to alert the doctors, who were likely standing in the corner of the room behind a reinforced glass shield. Imagine the scene. Silence. The whirring of a massive 500-pound engine, sudden thud, and then, ding. Baby is served. So, Why don't we see these in every hospital today? Why did it remain a failed patent? First, there's the physiological nightmare. While George was a great engineer, he ignored one major biological fact: blood. Centrifugal force doesn't just act on the baby, it acts on every fluid in the mother's body. Spinning a human at these speeds would force the blood toward the mother's feet and away from her brain. She would likely lose consciousness almost immediately. Then there's the mechanical risk. If the kill switch failed, or if the brakes locked up too quickly, the resulting whiplash could be fatal. Childbirth is a delicate process of contractions. A machine that simply flings the child out ignores the complexity of human anatomy. Beyond the blood flow issues, there was the vibration factor. A 500-pound table spinning fast enough to generate 7 Gs would create immense structural stress. If the table wasn't perfectly balanced, down to the gram, the entire machine would begin to vibrate violently. Instead of a smooth delivery, the mother would be subjected to a jackhammer effect. There was no mention in the patent of how to stabilize a human body against that kind of mechanical resonance. It was a machine designed for a laboratory, not a living, breathing human being. One topic of discussion that remains a mystery to this day is whether a full-scale version of this machine was ever actually built. Records from the era are hazy. We know that George and Charlotte spent years trying to pitch this to hospitals in New York and New Jersey. Imagine the sales pitch: a man in a sharp suit walking into a board of directors meeting with blueprints for a spinning delivery table. While most hospitals laugh them out of the room, there are rumors of a scaled-down mechanical model that George used for demonstrations. Some say it ended up in a private collection, while others believe it was scrapped for parts when the patent finally expired. The idea that a physical version of this device might still be sitting in a basement somewhere is perhaps the most haunting part of the Blonsky legacy. George Blonsky passed away in 1984, never seeing his machine built. But the story didn't end there. In 1999, the scientific community finally recognized the Blonskys. They were posthumously awarded the Ig Nobel Prize for managed healthcare. These prizes are given for research that first makes people laugh, then makes them think. While the machine was a failure, the philosophy behind it, that we can use gravity to assist in labor, is actually sound. Today, doctors often encourage upright birthing positions to let gravity help. The Blonskys were right about the physics. They were just catastrophically wrong about the execution. The archive of failed patents is a graveyard of what-ifs. It reminds us that the line between genius and madness is often just a matter of RPMs.